Cyberpunk 2077 can't seem to stay out of the news. There was an image released showing the release schedule for updates and such, for the DLC for the game. And the image revealed that the next-gen update / versions of the game, they're not coming out until after the DLC, the free DLC, mind you, is coming out for the game. And that's all happening at the end of the year because they're all working very, very hard to patch this game. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that timeline. What are your thoughts on the next-gen version coming out after the DLC or the timeline in general?
This game's a joke.
If the game ran normal on last gen, I think it'd be fine if the DLC came out before the next gen versions, but I think since it's not working that great, they should be reprioritizing stuff.
Well, I think
that makes sense to me.
I think on the on that timeline they also have like hot fixes that are planned. So I don't know what the difference between the hot fixes and the big next gen patches.
Hotfix would be like, we're just fixing the current gen game, and the next gen patch would be like the next gen version coming out.
I mean, they definitely have to fix their game as it is now first. But I don't understand why they're releasing DLC for this game before like releasing the optimal experience on console.
Yeah, I don't understand either. But to answer your question, the hotfixes 1.04, 5, and 6, those are already done.
Oh, okay.
So, like, that's what that means. And then the patches, the big patches that they promised in a previous briefing, those are the ones that are coming out. There's, like, a big patch that's coming out this month, and then another big patch that's coming out next month, and those are 1.1 and 1.2, respectively. So that's what all of that stuff means.
Those are coming before the DLC.
Those are coming before the DLC, and those should allegedly fix the current gen. So we're kind of like in a weird spot to where we're speculating, like, oh, okay, like if those patches really do fix the last gen experience, then like,
I think it's fine if the DLC comes out like that.
I don't know. I just feel like you guys watch The Apology? We didn't have that in the notes, but like, did you guys see the big apology?
No.
From like the co-founder, co-creator or whatever. Basically, he was just like, sorry, we weren't like listening to our developers and blah, blah, blah. And there's just basically the developers were told that like, yeah, he was like, oh, like I take full accountability, except, COVID was a problem. I'm like, dude, this game, like, clearly was, like, not in production for, like, when did they announce it? Like 2013 or something? Yeah. So, like, this game was not in production for 7 years. Like, people were, like, doing, like, deep dive research, and, like, it looked like they just basically started making the game after the E3 demo came out. And they're like, oh, you see this E3 demo? Let's make the game now and have it look like that. People were like, that's like a legitimate theory that people are like actually believe. And I kind of believe it too, because
it also
just
seems like
they're, go ahead.
The, when development teams develop games, right, it's not typically on like a PS4 dev kit or an Xbox One dev kit. It's a PC.
Right.
So they're optimizing it for, PC level technology that is, years ahead of where PS4 and Xbox One are.
Right.
So
many years.
Yeah.
Those came out so long ago.
And they weren't like necessarily like the most up to date when they came out, right?
I can only speak for knowing that the Switch was not.
Well, I watched a video saying that like they were like okay for the time, but like they weren't like on the same level of like what I don't know, I guess a mid-range PC or like a high-end PC was at the time.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, usually they try to stay to par with like mid to low range PC.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting if they weren't even meeting those standards.
But yeah, I mean, I think you need a, higher end PC to run this game right now. Like, at the optimal settings.
I mean, I have I've talked about it before, but like I think since the last time we talked about this game on the podcast, like I've got the PC code and I'm trying to run it on PC, and it's not going well. It's still giving me like the flatline error when the game like totally crashes. It like does really crazy like visual bugs that like scare me, that make me feel that like the GPU is like basically on its last leg. And I'm like, is it because like, is this thing overheating? Like, what's going on? Like, is this just not optimized to work on anything? Is this game not meant to exist?
No, you have to spend $5,000 to play this game.
And it's not worth it. Speaking of that, do you guys want to talk more about the timeline at all? Because I feel like the next question is a little bit bigger.
Yeah. You go to the second question.
Yeah, so basically my second question is a little bit broader, and it's, can Cyberpunk even be saved? Or is what this game is at its core, like foundationally, totally broken? So they're just like building something on top of something that never worked to begin with. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that? From hearing news stories or from firsthand accounts?
So the reviews are like, the reviews that came out, you know, they saw a lot of potential in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, despite all of the, you know, technical errors. So if they could actually work out the technical errors, maybe there's something there. I mean, we've seen games like this in the past have a really crappy launch, and then, you know, 2 years later, right, it turns out to be an amazing game. Like, you know, No Man's Sky had a really bad launch.
It's a perfect example. Yeah.
Fallout 76. I mean, I don't think that many people like that game anymore anyway, but that had a bad launch and they fixed it.
Yeah, they fixed a bunch of stuff, but I think that game is just like, you know, a lot of people are like, I like my single player RPG experience, and like this, they're like, it's not that. So I think people have issues with just the idea of it at its core. But I go ahead.
No, sorry. Last thing, I want to know if the Witcher series did not exist, right? And CD Projekt Red was any other developer,
bankrupt.
Yeah, well, yeah. Would they get a pass? I feel like some people are giving them a pass because, you know, they made The Witcher 3. Yeah.
Well, you know, that was the mantra to the staff. It was like, well, we made The Witcher 3, so like anything, like we can do this. Anything is possible. And there's also the running joke of like, hey, you guys bought a Polish video game and expected it to work. Like, what were you thinking? It's like, I don't think Poland is really known for exporting AAA games.
Plus, they're a pretty small team. Well, they were. I think for the Witcher series, they were pretty small.
Mm-hmm. But they were like, yeah, they ran their staff like with crunch hours, and people were quitting, and it's just not.
And it's still a crap product. Like, it's still bad.
So yeah, back to the original question is like, it's the things that I just think it's not fundamentally broken, but it's fundamentally not the experience that they promised, and I don't think it ever will be, because they talked about like basically the city being like alive and breathing, and it's just like not that kind of an immersive experience. Like, I think the way that you interacted with the characters and the way that your character evolved and stuff like that, like, was supposed to be a lot more, you know, cohesive and transformative, and it's just like, that's not what the game is.
Yeah, I heard
there's quests.
I heard like the shops in the city, or like that the only thing you could really interact in the city is like the shops, and then everything else like you can't really interact with. So like, what's the point of having this crazy open world concept?
Like, yeah, exactly. It just seems like it's just like any other city we've ever seen or visited in a video game, except on a larger scale, but like not any more interactive than these other cities have been. Arguably less interactive. Like, you can interact with vending machines, and I don't know. It's just like Grand Theft Auto. Like, there's just side-by-side comparisons of Grand Theft Auto, which is a super old game. I'm talking about the 5, Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, they do side-by-side comparisons of, like, you know, how, like, the crowds react, how the police react to when you do a crime. It's like the police literally zap in, like, they load in next to you. Where, like, in Grand Theft Auto, they have to get the crime reported to them. They have to drive to you. You can escape. Like, it's just none of these systems of the NPCs having lives, which is something they promise. Like, none of that's there. And they'll be able to fix, like, NPCs, like, walking through walls and stuff like that. But I think they're only going to be able to fix it to the point to getting what currently exists to function and not really creating the world that they promised. I guess I feel like I kind of made that point twice, but I just wanted to reiterate it.
Yeah, but you meant like fixing the bugs, but not like enhancing the game.
Yeah,
anymore.
Exactly. Enhancing it to the point of what we all thought this thing was going to be, which it ain't. So, I don't know. At this point, I'll just take a working game. That's my final thought on that.
I'll add a question to this discussion. So,
yeah, sure.
If they do fix out the bugs this year or something, can a game like this be nominated for Game of the Year? Is it worthy of that?
You know what? I think it will get nominated.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I don't think it'll win. I think it'll be nominated, and I agree that everyone should be like, what? And disagree with the fact that it should be nominated, because the technical marvel, like, I feel like people still in their mind are like, oh, but it's this game. It's not that game. It's not the game they said it was. It's the game that you have in your hand. And the game that you have in your hand is not crazy revolutionary. It's like a pretty cool setting for like a open world RPG. Like, that's, and the story's good. And I like some of the voice acting's really, really good. But like, if that stuff wasn't good, if there wasn't voice acting and he just had to read text the whole time, like some of the older games, like, this game would be not very engaging, and I feel like I wouldn't care about any of the characters. But there are moments in this game, and I have got through the game far enough to have feelings. The game has given me feelings. I don't want to like take away from the fact that they did build pretty decent characters, but they plopped them into a broken world.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna get nominated for Game of the Year just because, you know, it's Cyberpunk and it's CD Projekt Red. Mm-hmm. They can do no harm. And I mean, I doubt it'll win as well. Mm-hmm. Who knows what's coming down the pipeline, though? Like, we could have a really crappy year for games and it could win.
I mean, we did have a great year last year, so like, I'm a little worried that like we're gonna have a dry spell in 2021. We're going to start to see the effects of like, oh, okay, COVID really did mess up the pipeline for everybody. Like, they could finish what was already basically done and then get that stuff out in 2020. But like, stuff that, you know, needed to be like really hard
development or like,
Yeah, exactly. We might get some hiccups here. But there's stuff on the horizon. Like,
a lot of anniversaries this year. So
a lot of anniversaries. We'll talk about one a little later.
Yeah, it's true. We got one coming up in the show.
God of War.
But yeah,
there's some
God of War
big names that probably will get delayed, but you know, they're on the calendar right now.
It's true. They are on the calendar. So I guess final thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077 in general. What do you think about the apology? Like, do you think? I'm like, the apology is like, was half-assed. The guy was like, "Oh, you know, like we were out of touch and
we released our alpha game."
Yeah, it's like
you're our QA testers. You know, you'll find all the bugs.
They just chose money over.
Oh yeah.
Over anything, and that's like, you know, at the end of the day, they're a corporation, and that's usually what corporations do, right?
It sold like 12, 13 million copies.
I know. How many of them work? I want to know what PC? Percentage of, what's the percentage of people who actually like could get their game functioning and like get through the story without any major hiccups? I don't know. I'm gonna wait. We've got the timeline. We showed you. I don't know if it's still on the screen, but we showed you the timeline at one point. I'm probably gonna wait until the end of 2021 to actually play the game again on my PC.
Me too.
So,
I have the PS5 version, so I'm gonna try that once it gets
Nice.
that patch.
Very cool. Camilo, is this a game that you would consider playing?
Probably like next year or something once everything's figured out.
Nice. All right. Well, yeah, we'll touch base with you guys in 2022 when Cyberpunk is fixed.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the other stories this week and let us know how you felt about this story down in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. Talk to you all next time.